Hello everyone, it's Marcy, and I had a request from a viewer following the flip through of this journal to show how I used corrugated cardboard to make lines for writing in my journal. This is not something that I by any means came up with. Many people do this, but I did have the request. Thank you very much, Farm Wife. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes and show you how I do it. Now, this is my sheet of corrugated cardboard. You can see I've cut it. I even punched a hole in it, and it sits up on my pegboard so I can just pull it down and use it whenever I want. But the way it started was with just a piece of cardboard. This is off of an Amazon box. And cut it down to size. Normally I would be using my box cutter, but I don't know where my box cutter is right now. So, and then I'm going to peel off one side of the paper. And normally you'll kind of feel one side normally comes up a little easier than the other, but it's pretty easy. Yeah, I think I peeled this one on the wrong side. Let's try this one. See if this comes up a little better. That's better. The difference was on this one, this side of the box, the paper is a little lighter weight than the paper on this side. And I don't know if this holds true for everything, but the side where the paper feels a little thicker tends to come up a little easier. And the only reason I'm not going to use this one is because now it's very flimsy. I say that, although this one feels pretty thin too, so maybe it's just a matter of trying and trying again. So peel the paper up, and I will go in and clean this up some, although I must admit, I don't, and I'm just running my nail down it to help tear the paper. I don't, when I start a new piece of corrugated cardboard, I don't clean them up completely because I don't mind the rougher edges for the lines that I make. So you can go in and you can peel these up, clean them up as much as you want to. Or leave some like that, which will just give a little added texture, break up the lines a little bit. Okay, so then normally what I use is, and here, got my scrap paper. This is just a book page. Normally, I use Distress ink, and I just rub it along the cardboard. Normally I use Vintage Photo, but my Vintage Photo is in the other room, so this time I'm using old paper. And then put it down on my paper, sort of straightish, sometimes not so straightish if you're me. Rub it around, pull it up, and you've got lines. And you can see where I have some breaks in the lines from where some of the paper remained. Doesn't bother me a bit. The other thing, if you don't have distress ink or you don't want to use it, give me for a second. That beeping is my insulin pump. Okay. Here's one I'd cut earlier. Archival ink works just as well. Basically, any kind of ink pad will work. Depending on the ink pad, you might have to let it dry a little more. With archival ink, I want to work relatively quickly, although not super quickly. So there you've got some lines. That was a different piece of cardboard, but you've got different lines with some archival ink. The other thing that I do from time to time is I actually use acrylic paint from time to time. Here's one I was playing with a little earlier. I'm just gonna squirt some acrylic ink down and grab my paintbrush. My paintbrush is damp. It's not dripping wet, but a little bit damp, just to help spread this and keep the acrylic paint from drying quite as quickly. That back in the bucket. And then put your corrugated cardboard in the paint, rub it on, and then transfer it over to your paper. And there you've got lines. The only thing I will, obviously, you need to let these dry. When I do this, I typically will add the lines before I bind my papers into the journal. It can be done after they're bound in, and many people probably do it very easily. For me, it gets a little more difficult to do once the pages are actually bound into the journal. So normally I'll have my signatures put together and kind of decide what pages I want to put some lines on, and I'll go ahead and do that before I sew the signatures in. That way I'm working with a flat surface and don't have to, like, let's find one. Like here, it wouldn't have been as nice and flat a surface. I would have been arguing with this side of the journal a little more. So for me, it's just easier to do it before I actually bind the signatures into the journal. But you can do it however you want. And if you want, you can take just sort of take some of this and tear it down and get just a smaller, one thing I'll show you is, depending on how thick your paper is, you kind of get a twofer on some of this thinner paper. That's where I used archival ink, and that's the distress ink. The acrylic paint did not come through at all, but you get a lighter image on the reverse side. So, let's see, that was the archival. Use some walnut stain on this one just to get a different color. So there, it's a little difficult to see, but you get kind of edges and just a much smaller writing space. So for my journals, I like having lines for writing space. I don't necessarily write on the line, but I tend, if I don't have some sort of guide, my writing tends to do that. Where at least with lines, even if I'm not writing right on the line, I've got kind of a space to limit the amount of slant that I get in my writing. So that's why when I do journals, a lot of times I will put writing lines in just for that very reason. Anyway, Farm Wife, thank you very much for asking this question. If you haven't tried using corrugated cardboard to create lines in your journal, do it. And like I said, on this one, I just left some of the extra paper there, and that gives it an entirely more of a rough texture, so that the lines aren't so perfect, and you can do lots of things with it. Anyway, that's it for now. Enjoy your day, happy crafting, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.